We'll start with our last section of Chapter 6, Metamorphic Rocks and the Rock Cycle. So by the end of this section, you should be able to explain how a metamorphic rock forms, be able to contrast those terms foliated versus non-foliated, explain the three types of metamorphism, explain how different grades of metamorphism occur, and then also describe what's happening in the rock cycle. So first, let's take a look at a metamorphic rock. So these metamorphic rocks form from already existing rocks. So essentially what happens is, over thousands or even millions of years, these rocks are going to be forced down farther and farther into the Earth's surface based on the pressure of everything above it. And also keep in mind that the temperature and pressure increase as you go deeper into the Earth. So as these rocks are being forced down more, they're going to be exposed to greater temperatures and greater pressures. So you get these metamorphic rocks to form when you have an extreme amount of pressure and an extreme temperature acting on this rock, and it causes the rock to change texture and also the composition without the rock ever melting it. So it gets squeezed and heated up so much that even though the rock doesn't melt into a molten material, it still changes the rock that it is. So if you think about foliated versus non-foliated, these are our two groups that we're going to break our metamorphic rocks down into. And it's based on texture and also mineral composition. So we could first take a look at foliated rocks. So what happens in this case is the high pressure literally squeezes all of these minerals into parallel layers. So if you can see here, there are clear bands here. You can see those definite and different types of layers. With non-foliated rocks, however, these minerals are going to form more of a blocky shape. So you're not going to have those layers. So foliated, you have those parallel layers, and non-foliated, there are no layers. So you're often going to see examples like marble and quartzite. So then there are three types of metamorphism that we're going to talk about. So this is essentially the three different ways that these metamorphic rocks can form. It could be regional metamorphism. This is where it happens over a really large region. It happens across kind of hundreds or even thousands of miles across Earth's surface. You have contact metamorphism, and this is where if you get something like a pocket of molten material to force its way up into a layer of Earth's surface closer to, or layer of the Earth closer to Earth's surface, this really hot molten material is going to provide that hotter temperature that's then going to change the rock that it is. And then you also get hydrothermal metamorphism, and this is where you get extremely hot water to alter the mineral composition. So not everything necessarily happens deep within Earth. Sometimes you'll get it when you come in contact with a pocket of molten material or really hot water. So these different combinations of temperature and pressure are what result in the different grades of metamorphism. So essentially, if you have a high temperature and high pressure, it's going to produce a high grain metamorphic rock. And then if you have low temperature and low pressure, it's going to produce a low grade. I'm sorry, I meant to say high grade, not grain. Now we can jump to our last slide, the rock cycle. So there's a lot going on here. There are a lot of arrows here, and we're going to spend some more time kind of picking through what's happening here. But this is essentially saying that any rock can become any type of rock if you go through the right process. For example, if we have a sedimentary rock and we apply heat and pressure to it, it's going to undergo metamorphism and lead to a metamorphic rock. But the same for an igneous rock, and even another metamorphic rock. If you apply heat and pressure, it'll lead to a metamorphic rock. If you take an igneous rock and you weather it and erode it, it'll lead to sediment. Once it's deposited, it undergoes lithification, meaning compaction and cementation. That'll lead you to a sedimentary rock. Or if you take a sedimentary rock that already exists and you weather and erode it and put it through lithification, or even if you take a metamorphic rock and weather and erode it, once you go through lithification, that'll lead you back to a sedimentary rock. And our last step, if you take a metamorphic rock, you melt it, it becomes magma or lava. Once it recrystallizes, it'll form an igneous rock. And the same thing, if you melt a sedimentary rock down, or even if you melt an already existing igneous rock down, it'll become magma or lava, and then once it recrystallizes, it'll form an igneous rock. So you can see that literally every rock can become any rock if it undergoes the right process. So now that we've finished this section, make sure you know how a metamorphic rock forms. Make sure you can explain the difference between foliated and non-foliated. Make sure you can explain those 3 types of metamorphism, explain how you get those different grades of metamorphism, as well as be familiar with the rock cycle and how any rock can become any type of rock if you put it through the right process. Until next time, have a good one.